I had a friend of mine one time when our kids were little, so we have a lot of kids close in age, and they were all like, I probably had one in my arms, I was probably pregnant, I had one or two hanging on my legs, and they were just driving me nuts. And she said, there is a day very soon that you will miss this, because you get affection every minute you want it, every day of the week, every week of the year. And there will be one day when your kids will walk through the kitchen without giving you a hug, and you will crave this moment right now. And it changed me. Like you said, it changed me on a dime. And from that point forward, I was never like, get off of me. I was like, all right, come, join the pile. Go do the hard thing, because life's going to be hard no matter what. So either choose the hard thing that you want to address and go take it on, or life will give you something hard and you'll have something hard anyway. Never a question. I always knew I wanted to be married. Think about, what do I love? I love serving my family.
Welcome back, guys, to our part 2 interview with Mrs. Jennifer Davis. Make sure that you hit that like button down below, subscribe down below, and hit the notification bell. This is going to be more of a wifely content that we have going on here, because I like to interview wives. I have interviewed lots of wives who have been married a couple of years, some wives who have been married 18 years, some wives who have been married over 30 years. And with that, Jennifer, how long have you been married?
30 years. So it was 30 years last July. So we celebrated our 30th anniversary 30,000 feet over the Atlantic. So we were on our way to a wedding, ironically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cute. Whose wedding?
One of our former au pairs. So we have a friend in Germany who was getting married, and our whole family was invited, and we went. So it was pretty crazy.
And you said you guys have been together for 33 years?
34.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how did you know that you wanted to be a wife?
That was never a question. I always knew I wanted to be married. That was, I never even considered anything else. I actually thought I would get married later in life. I thought I would go, have my college education and a career and all of these things. But then I met my husband when I was 17. So it's been pretty much my whole adult life.
Well, why'd you pick him? Because you knew. It sounds like you knew right away.
Yeah. Everybody's like, how did you know he was the one? And I would say, you don't, right? I think at 17 years old, I just thought he was cute. Actually, I thought he needed love. Like he had his hair was kind of a mess, and he was wearing this t-shirt. It was like an Elvis is King t-shirt that was probably a decade old. And I just remember thinking like he would clean up, like he would look so cute. But what did I like about him? I remember seeing that he was really engaged with his nieces and nephews, and he was super athletic. He was skiing with one nephew on his skis and one nephew on his shoulders. And I was like super impressed by that, because I like athletes, and then I liked that his family was so important to him, and his kids were important to him. And, the one thing that I knew probably more even than I wanted to be married was that I wanted a family. And so I think those were it. In hindsight, I realized, his work ethic was really important. I wouldn't say that I was able to articulate that at that time. Us having similar religious backgrounds was important. Again, I didn't articulate that at the time. I thought he was funny. I thought he loved kids, and it was fun to be around. So that was it.
How did you come to realize that you valued a large family?
I came from a large family. So my husband has 12 brothers and sisters. So he has 6 brothers and 6 sisters. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. So we have 20 brothers and sisters. So the thing I valued most in my life has always been my siblings. It was the best gift my parents ever gave me. And so I think that for me, the bonus was that he came from a really big family. But, I always knew that I wanted a big family. Now, ironically, when I was pregnant with our second child, I was very pregnant. It was within a few days of giving birth. And I remember feeling so sad for our son, Austin, thinking, this poor child, he's no longer going to get any attention. He's, this new baby. And I remember sitting on the floor crying, and I'd taken him to Target and bought him a bunch of toys. And I hated a lot of clutter. So that was kind of like out of character. And then we came to the hospital, and he came in with his dad to see the baby. And he was instantly and magically in love with his little sister. That was the moment that I was like, I was worried about taking something from him when the best gift I had ever been given was my siblings. Mm-hmm. And so why was I so worried about it? But it was actually why it was because it was a me issue. It was that I didn't know how I was going to split my time. I didn't know how I was going to give this next one the same thing I gave the first one, when the truth is all they really needed was siblings. They didn't need more of me.
I was an only child for 13 years. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, it was absolutely lame and whack. Like the one-on-one time with my mom, that was great. But the second that I saw my little brother being born and I saw him take his first breath, I immediately knew that I wanted to be a mom, and he immediately became my favorite person. And I finally had somebody to hang out with. So I think that I had the added benefit of being 13 and him being a young baby. So then I got to be a little bit more maternal. But then once he started, I liked playing with him when he was a baby, but I think that's because I'm a woman. And then when he became a toddler, that was a lot of fun because you do have a playmate in a different way. So I would say I lucked out with the age gap between me and my brother. So you did the right thing. In my humble opinion, take it for what it's worth. But I think women are a little bit worried that their heart won't grow, in a sense that how are you going to fit all of your love for all of these people? But it kind of just does that. I had a little bit of concern. This is going to sound silly, but I really love my dog. And I was like, what's it going to be like? Because I know I'm going to love my baby more than I love my dog. But one of my girlfriends, she's been married for 18 years. She has 3 children. She says that your heart just grows along with them. I was like, okay, good to know, good to know. So what do you love about being a wife?
When I think about what do I love serving my family. So I think whether it's what do I love about being a mom? What do I love about being a wife? It's all the same thing. I like serving them. And I think that I'm getting better at being served. I've never demanded that, which I think is a mistake. And I never valued it. Felt like I was almost like letting people down if they were helping me. But serving and being served is probably the 2 best parts about being a wife.
Would you say that there's anything that you dislike about being a wife, whether it be like flippant or sincere?
Sure, it's like I hate the fact that he doesn't know how to put his shoes on a shelf. I mean, for God's sakes, it's like 33 years. But I remember years ago, he would come home from work and he'd come in the door and he'd take his tie off and he'd hang it on the coat rack, and then he'd take his suit jacket, and he'd hang it on the chair, and then he'd go in the hallway and he'd take off his shoes, and then he'd sit down and he'd take off his socks, and it was like he left this like trail, and I would just be enraged about it. And then I finally was like, you know what? I just need to be grateful that I'm picking up after a really good man. And I just decided it was like the best part of my day. And then, it no longer bothered me. Now, was I happy on the days that he didn't do it? Of course. When I think about the things that I don't like it when I feel taken advantage of. I don't like it when I wash my car and they make it dirty. That gets me frustrated because I'm neat and I like it that way. I hate when nobody comes to dinner, when I cook dinner and nobody shows up. That is really maddening. But I think overall, what else would I be? For decades, every time I tell people how many kids I have, I've never met a single person that said, boy, I wished I would have had less. Everybody says, I wished I would have had more. I just didn't think, it felt overwhelming at the time, or there's a societal push that, we are doing an injustice to the planet by having more kids. And it's just not true. It's just not the way it is. So
sometimes I interview wives selfishly, and I know that I have the platform to help other young women, but I also try to get the best pieces of advice as possible, because not every piece of advice is going to hit. A lot of it is going to miss, but when they hit, it's really helpful. One of the things that I heard from a woman she was married much longer than myself, like several decades, she basically said that you should be happy to be picking up these items because there could be a day where you won't. And that's the sad part that really tugs at your heart is, well, what if something were to happen to my husband? You'd be begging, like, please put the dirty socks on the floor just one last time. So I have that mentality when it comes to picking up after my husband, although I do have a very clean husband. And some women, I think, they try to nitpick about picking up the clothes, and it could just be to make the marriage easier that you just pick it up and put it in the hamper yourself. So that's something that I've come to learn, but I've never been like too annoyed about the clothes being on the floor, because every time I see a sock on the floor, I'm like, he needs me.
You know, it's an interesting thought because recently Dan was like trying to get lists of chores from me to give to the kids. And, you know, my kids are very helpful. I really don't have any complaints about it. And I had this angst in me that I couldn't figure out what it was. And it took me a day or two to realize that what was the problem was I didn't want help. I wanted to do it. I do all of our family's laundry. I do every kid's laundry who will let me do it, okay? I don't do it because they want me to. They have never said, Mom, here's my basket of laundry, go do it. I do it because that's my love language. That's what I like to do. I love fresh, clean, folded laundry. I like laundry. And so I like to do it for my family. And when I see that they have done it when I'm not there, it like almost like hurts me a little bit. So to your point, I think that's, it is something that's true. I will also say that I had a friend of mine one time when our kids were little. So we have a lot of kids close in age. And they were all like, I probably had one in my arms. I was probably pregnant. I had one or two hanging on my legs and they were just driving me nuts. And she said, there is a day very soon that you will miss this because you get affection every minute you want it, every day of the week, every week of the year. And there will be one day when your kids will walk through the kitchen without giving you a hug and you will crave this moment right now. And it changed me. Like you said, it changed me on a dime. And from that point forward, I was never like, get off of me. I was like, all right, come, join the pile. And now funny, like our kids, we go to church and they all like try to squish in the same pew. We all go together. Nobody has good personal space, I guess, probably because of that.
Given that you've been married over 30 years and together for 34 years, what is one thing you wish you knew as a new bride?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I think that for me, it would have been trust my gut. And you'll see a little theme here that's all just about confidence and knowing. But, there's a world of professionals that generally have been married less time, professionals that are telling you how to parent and, they've only had one or two kids. There's all these professional books. But the truth is nobody lives in your shoes. And so for me, I would have trusted my gut sooner. I would have embraced what is naturally me, that I'm naturally a homemaker, I'm naturally a nest builder, I'm naturally, somebody who wants to nurture my family. And not to say that I didn't do it, I always did it, but I didn't do it with the confidence with my first ones that I did with the last. I knew exactly what to do. And it didn't matter if somebody had written 10,000 parenting books, I knew that my ideas were better. And I think that's the same with being a wife. I wished I would have been more confident sooner to just kind of accept the roles that we naturally fell into anyway.
So something fun to break up the interview a little bit. I just did the math. You were pregnant for 5 years and a quarter. What do you think about that?
That is a lot of time. That is a lot of time. And if you add on breastfeeding, I was basically pregnant or breastfeeding for 11 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's actually really good for breast cancer rates. Women, if you're new to the platform or if you're watching, that greatly reduces your risk for that. So there you go. You're going to live forever.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, no, being pregnant was definitely not my favorite thing. And probably one of my favorite things about being a mom was breastfeeding. So ironically, those are the two things that I could have lived without being pregnant, and I loved to breastfeed my kids. So,
well, what did you love about it?
I just felt like it was like they need you. It's so natural. So I wasn't planning on breastfeeding, ironically. My first one, I was planning on giving them a bottle. And the lactation nurse who came into the hospital room, she was just really loving. And she said, you can always stop, but you can't start. So do you want to just try? And I was like, okay, fine. And I was instantly in love with it, and it's something that you can do for your baby that nobody else can do. And I loved breastfeeding in the middle of the night in the dark, rocking chair with my babies, and just practicality. It's easy, it's clean, it's free, it helps you get your figure back earlier, all of those things. So there's a lot of really good reasons to do it outside of, it's funny, all of the experts weren't into breastfeeding until suddenly there was a shortage of formula, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now that we can't make any money off of it, why don't you go breastfeed your children? And so I just think that's the best part of being a mom.
Do you view being a wife and a mom as two separate roles or one role together?
So I don't see those as two separate roles. I see it as one vocation. But when you think about the vocation, there's different responsibilities. So one of my responsibilities is being a mom. One of my responsibilities is being a wife. One of my responsibilities is managing my home and doing all of those things. But, it all goes together. If you have success in one, you're probably going to have success in the other. And, it's not an always thing, but it just gives you the ability when those work together, they work together really harmoniously. And when they don't, it's also bad. It's my sign in my laundry room that says, when mommy ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. It's also true. It's like, if we had a lot of kids, and it was like, if I yelled at one child, then that kid would hit his younger sister, just why? So it's the same thing in marriage. It's like, if your marriage is strong, then, you're a better parent, and you're a better parent when your marriage is strong. So to me, it all goes together just naturally.
What has been your biggest marital challenge that you're comfortable sharing publicly, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so, it's hard to say one, right? 34 years together, there's a lot of things that went wrong. So I think, when you think about stress in people's lives, the hardest times in their lives, people fight most about religion, about money, about moving, switching jobs, all of those things. So when I think about us, I don't think we're that unique. So, first of all, we started our relationship. I was a teen mom. I got pregnant when I was 17 years old, had a baby at 18 and gave him up for adoption. And so he's our eldest birth son. So that usually people are like, well, let me sit down and, so that was really hard, right? That was the hardest thing I have ever personally done in my entire life. And, but then I look at it, and now I'm going to cry, but the result of it was it made me who I was, and it made us who we were. And in the end, a couple decades later, 3 decades later, he was reunited with our family and raised by a beautiful family, and is successful in doing his own thing. So I look at it and say, that was the hardest thing I've ever endured, but yet was it bad? No, it was fantastic. And so, that was very hard. We had financial problems. We almost lost everything on, a couple of occasions, but, we had gotten involved with some real estate things, and by God's grace, our business took off and we were able to turn it around. But, certainly those were hard times. But I think in those times for us, when it got really bad, it's, Dan's a firefighter and he knows what to do. And so I think that really was good. When we were selling our business, that was really hard because we were at different transitional periods. So I think, when you're transitioning, when there's a lot of transition in your life, those are hard times. But all of them make the outcome what it is. And, and our outcome right now is good. And so, my kids are healthy and happy. And so how can I, hate on any of those or wish they hadn't happened? You can't.
Well, personally, I have a lot to thank for the mamas that give their babies up for adoption, because my husband's adopted.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think it was a closed adoption, so he never got to know his birth parents, but I would never meet him, be married to him, be having my baby if his mom didn't choose life. So shout out to you guys making I'm going to say the right choice. Right. Yeah, I'm a staunch pro-life advocate. So
as am I, obviously. But, it's an interesting journey, because when we reintroduce, it's like I always knew I wanted him in our lives, but at what point in time? I have all these other kids, and and so when we initially found him, and I sought him out, it was like I had such peace. I'm going to cry, but I had such peace that he was happy and healthy, that I almost didn't need him in my life. That was like the added bonus. And I said, and I say over and over, if I died tomorrow, every prayer I've ever had has been answered, because every day I prayed for him. And so once I knew he was safe and healthy and had wonderful parents and has a wonderful wife and now a wonderful little baby, there's nothing else. That's as good as it gets. And then, it's like you say it's as good as it gets, and then I see him interact with my other kids and they love him. And, my son right now is in the Caribbean with him on a sailing trip, and, and he shows up and, he sits on the girls and, tickles them or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, then that's as good as it gets. And then he marries his beautiful bride, and then that was as good as it got. And then he has this little baby, and then it's like, oh my gosh, that is actually as good as it gets. And then, you get to go hold him. And so I just think that all of those burdens, like the outcome of them is creating a better result of, hard things. And they say, like, diamonds are made under pressure. And so, our lives are what they are because there's been a lot of hard times. Like, it isn't this fallacy that's out on the internet that, we just need to go do the easy thing. Go do the hard thing, because life's going to be hard no matter what. So either choose the hard thing that you want to address and go take it on, or life will give you something hard and you'll have something hard anyway. So, for us, that's what we chose.
Mm-hmm. Did that lead you to adopt later on?
It actually kind of had nothing to do with it. So people are always asking about, why do you have 10 kids? Like, why? So I never set out to have 10 kids. I wanted 5 sons. I didn't want a daughter. I don't know why, because I'm very domestic and I love girls, but I didn't want one. And then when our first daughter was born, when Hannah was born, I was like, this is the best thing. Like, what was I thinking? God knows better. And so then our first daughter that we adopted is actually Dan's niece. And so it was just situational that she came into our lives. And then it was a great nephew. And then, a random stranger that came into our lives. But each one of them, it was situational. I don't think it was like, gosh, I'm like waiting to go adopt kids. Now, I will say I went and did some work in the Dominican Republic in some orphanages. And my husband's last words as he put me on the airplane, he's like, do not bring back any children, because he knows. And, he was kidding, but he really wasn't kidding. He was like, okay, we have enough. So yeah, I think that we've been on both sides of adoption. I think it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's what made our family. So
it might be fun for you to know that you are actually the second Catholic wife I know who has been married for over 30 years and has over 10 children, including adoption.
That is crazy.
I know. We're going to get you guys together. Should be part of the network. So this one should be fun. Highlight of the interview. What has been your biggest marital win?
I think that being married for 30 years is a win. So I think that is the win, right? So, being married, us both having health and prosperity and, children that are healthy and succeeding. And I think those are all wins. You can talk about other ones. I think oftentimes the only time you lose in a marriage is when you're not on the same page. We've had plenty of those too. I wish I could say differently, but I think that's the win, is just being successfully married for 30 years.
I would say my biggest marital win so far, I've only been married a year. I just had my anniversary in February. Just watching my husband become a happier person, which is just nuts. And I'm watching him change and become a different man, still the same man, and probably at his core values, they have remained the same, but to just watch him experience more and more joy along the way, it's been truly a wild journey because I wasn't expecting this side of him. So my husband has been in the military for over 20 years, and just seeing him soften and becoming a girl dad, I love it. Highly recommend. A shameless plug. Fall in love, get married, have babies. What do you really have to lose? Why not? So it's no secret on my platform, I am a conservative. It just worked out very well for me. I think that it might be a personality type because it actually plays into whether or not you're more on the conservative side or the liberal side. There's a lot of data out there that suggests that it could be genetic, and there were a lot of things that I saw in my upbringing that I felt my family was a bit too worldly. So I made more of a conscious effort to pursue conservatism, and I also live in the Midwest. I've been here for 6 years. There's a lot of stereotypes about people who are conservative that I just haven't seen come to fruition living where I live. Maybe it's different in other states. I know that this is a cute little isolated spot in America. So what do you think people get wrong the most about wealthy conservatives?
I don't know specifically because I don't sit around and wonder what those things are. I think that there is a world of people that make an assumption that when you have found success, that somehow you've done it on the backs of others. And so I think that's probably one of the most unfair comments that are out there. And, for us, my parents gave us nothing. Dan's parents gave us even less. And what did they really give us? They gave us brains in our head and feet in our shoes. And, Dr. Seuss says you can steer yourself any direction you choose. So I think that it's a world of people who are jealous and people that don't understand that most things come out of working hard and being diligent and consistent on the same thing. There is no get rich quick. There's nothing, we were, I always joke we were a 33-year startup business, okay? Because if you just do the exact same thing over and over for 33 years, you'll probably be successful at it. And so I think there's just a misnomer that somehow, somebody was given something more than anybody else. I wasn't given more opportunity other than being an American and being here. I certainly wasn't given anything monetarily or physically, and I wasn't really given any help either. We weren't given any help. Our parents were busy. They were tired. They had raised 20 kids. They're like, good grief, you're on your own. So I think that there's just that, and the world is just unhappy, and unhappiness wants everyone else around them to be unhappy. Like, that's just a fact. And so I think that has a lot to do with it more than anything, more than what you are politically, what you are socially, what you are, it's just that unhappiness wants more unhappiness.
What is your number one piece of financial advice?
Make more than you spend. It's pretty simple.
Okay, this is the fifth time I've heard this, so it must be true.
Yeah. No, you know what? Again, we've made every mistake, so this isn't coming from a place of like, just do what we did. But, when you work hard, generally you'll make, that relates to income. It might not be this moment, but it's going to happen at some point in time. And then, being cautious about what you spend your money on and investing in. We spend a lot of money on real estate. We have beautiful homes, but, we use them as Airbnbs and so that's very different spending than spending it on a vacation or spending it on clothes or, whatever. I think as I've gotten older, I was from a family that recycled before recycling was a thing. I definitely see myself becoming, turning into my parents, actually. It's like kind of crazy because you just spend so much less. You just spend so much less money. And then the other thing I would say is I remember all of these conversations when I was pregnant with our third, thinking like, I'm never going to be able to afford this, right? And that's what you hear out there is like, kids are so expensive. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. And how could you afford 10 kids? I get that all of the time. And I remember at the time we were always using a credit card every month to buy everything, so we would get frequent flyer miles. So every month we would buy it all on the credit card and we would pay it off. And then I went from 3 kids to 6 kids and my credit card bill never changed. And it was like, how did that happen? Well, then I was like, wait, it's because the first thing that you spend is time, okay? And your time doesn't grow because you have more kids. So we had less time to eat out at restaurants. We had less time to go shopping. I had less time to buy the things I needed. And then you start to open your eyes to the things that you actually thought you needed that you really didn't need. And suddenly you just spend less because you actually didn't need it. And you don't have any more time to go spend the money, so you just don't.
That's where I want to get. Shoot, I want to have so many kids that I don't spend money on frivolous things. I will work on it and get back to you guys about how that goes. You've told me a couple of times to surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and you're founding this Be Exponential community. And myself, as a very pregnant wife who is wanting to stay home, do entrepreneurial work, as well as living out here in rural Kansas, what would that community have to offer a woman like me?
The Be Exponential community is like-minded people. So, it isn't necessarily people that have the same goals. It's people that are growth-minded. So, as I've been with you for the last few hours, you talk about all of the things you're wanting to improve and wanting to change and want it to be better. And, that's really what the community is about. And it's about helping people support, them be supported on their journey to whatever their goals are. So you and I have very different goals. We're at very different ages in our lives, but I feel confident that through community that support is there. And when you think about, your parents when you were young, if you had a friend that they didn't like, and they would be like, you become who you're with, you become that becomes who you are. It's no different. Like, that is human. That's human nature. So, when I went through my journey and I lost all my weight, I found myself starting to be around people who are much more fit, who are much more into exercise. When I started to go down the road of learning about nutrition and health, I started to surround myself by people like that, because it helps you be successful. And so when you think about the Be Exponential community, it's being exponential at whatever it is you choose to do. It isn't about you having to be, a girl in rural Kansas who is just starting her family versus me living in the Chicago suburbs and, having a family that's already grown.
And our last question for Mrs. Jennifer Davis. So you have one quote on your website that I wanted to pull up so that you could expand on it, because I thought it was really well written, and I'm curious to see how you developed that. On your website, you have this: doing things I love with people I like that make a difference in the world. Why did you choose that? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so that quote I came up with in, I can tell you the exact business meeting. We had just closed on selling our business, and a friend of mine, Steve, he said, well, what's next? Like, what does Gen 2.0 look like? And what I realized is that in that moment, it was like, I want to do things that change the world. When I was 17 years old, I wrote I wrote my biography, my 50-year-old biography, and I said I would be retired at 50 so that I could go make a difference in the world. And so, to me, I want to make the world a better place. I want to, when I'm 6 feet under, I want to know that, I changed the world. And I think the best way to change the world is by impacting other people, because, if you change the world yourself, then you've got, yeah, great, you've done great things. But if you change the world of a lot of people, then you make big impacts. And so for me, it was like, that's why I wanted to, that's what I wanted the world to look like when I'm done with it. And then, life is too short to be around people you don't like. And so that's another thing, when you have your first career and you're growing a business, and you're doing lots and lots of things that you don't like. And so I spent 6 months kind of like resting, trying to decide how this would look, because I knew what I wanted to do. I just wasn't sure what it would look like. And so that really became, the catalyst for Be Exponential, is that if I do things I love, which is communicating with others, sharing my journey, supporting other people, helping people really grow into their best version of themselves. My goal, now I am personally committed to Allie. Allie, I want you to be the best mom you can be, the best wife you can be, the best homemaker you can be, which is why I invest in you. And then once I get there, it's, with people I like, and so it's, when you're around like-minded people, when you're around growth-minded people, not necessarily like-minded people, growth-minded people, it doesn't matter what you're growing toward, you find commonality and a friendship and a kinship that you like. And so for me, that's what it is. It's that growth-minded people aren't going to step on somebody else's head to rise up. They say if you pour a drop of water in the ocean, it raises all boats. And so that's what I'm doing. And then, hopefully all of that makes a difference in the world. And that's where we're at. So.
Alrighty. So what are your closing thoughts, and where can the people find you?
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, for having me. This was a fun little journey into rural Kansas. So I've had a good time doing that. Our website is Be Exponential. So be-exponential.com. And there you're going to be able to join our community, and within the community, see all of the content. So we do a content selection every single month. We started with our core beliefs and building your goals, and then talking about the 7 fundamentals of an exponential mindset. And then building on that, what I really love about the community we're building is it's philosophical, it's theoretical, you're learning all of these ideas, but then we're really putting it into practice. So putting it into practice on learning how to keep a home that's exponential, doing digital, all of your content on your computer that's exponential. Next, this month is going to be talking about health and nutrition and being exponential in your health and in your lifestyle. We're going to talk about mental health and all sorts of different things. So Be Exponential, that was a long way to say B-Exponential, is the website. I can be found also on TikTok, on Instagram, and on Facebook, where there's content that we're posting every month. So I really, we want a full and robust community, and we really want to help as many people as we can on their journey.
Well, thank you for coming to my home. First guest in this capacity to do pre-recorded content. Let me know what you guys thought, if I should do something like this again in the future. Also, let me know in the comment section down below if you want to hear more from Mrs. Jennifer Davis. You can find all of her information in the description down below. I will also be peeking my head through there over in the Be Exponential community, because she's truly improved my life. And it didn't even take long. We're working on this nursery closet because I had the most inefficient nursery, unbeknownst to myself. I had no idea how inefficient it was, but she put me on tip, and we've redone the whole thing, and she gutted it in less than 5 minutes, which is a truly impressive skill. So this is a homemaker to the exponential degree. So if you like this content, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!